My name is Cassandra Hale, 29 years old. The phone buzzed against the marble countertop like a dying insect, its blue light slicing through the darkness of our penthouse kitchen at 2:47 a.m. I froze where I lay in bed, staring into the shadows. I should have ignored it, let the vibration fade, and buried myself deeper into the pillow that still carried the faint scent of his cologne. But something about the timing made my chest tighten, urgent in a way I couldn't explain. 3 years of loving someone teaches you their patterns. Emmett Beckham never sent voice memos this late. He never sent them to me at all. His language was control, his habits meticulous. Texts were carefully typed, edited before hitting send, polished like statements prepared for court. Spontaneity was not his dialect. My bare feet whispered across the cold hardwood as I padded toward the glow. My silk nightgown clung to me in the moonlight, spilling through our floor-to-ceiling windows. From here, the city looked like a galaxy, glittering and alive. A view I used to think belonged in a fairy tale. Tonight, though, the lights resembled watchful eyes, each one bearing silent witness. The message icon pulsed. Voice memo. 4 minutes and 23 seconds. Long enough to contain a lifetime of secrets. My finger hovered above the screen, trembling. Later, I would remember this as the final moment of my innocence. The last time I believed Emmett Beckham was exactly who he pretended to be. The man who knelt in the sand of a Santorini beach 6 months ago, tears streaming, promising to love and protect me forever. I pressed play. His voice filled the silence, low and intimate. The same tone that once made my heart race. But his words weren't meant for me. "Mom, it's working perfectly. She has no idea what's really happening." I froze, breath strangling in my throat. "The wedding's in 2 months. By then, everything will be transferred. The trust fund, the properties, all of it. She actually thinks I love her." The phone slipped from my numb fingers, clattering against marble. The sound was sharp, like breaking bones. His voice floated up from the floor, each word wrapping around me like poison gas. "You were right about playing the long game. 3 years of pretending to be the perfect boyfriend, and she's completely under my control. The best part? She's so grateful for my patience with her anxiety and depression. If she only knew I was the one causing it." My stomach lurched. His laughter followed, warm, rich, the sound I used to drown in, now hollow ice. The medication switch was genius. Swapping her antidepressants for placebos has made her so much more dependent. And the gaslighting techniques you taught me? Perfect. She questions her own memory every day now. Sometimes I move her keys or change her passwords, then act concerned when she panics. She actually apologized last week for being forgetful. A sob clawed up my throat. I bit my fist to keep it silent. Upstairs, I heard the faint shift of his body in bed, probably reaching toward my side in his sleep, maintaining the illusion even in unconsciousness. Emmett's voice carried on, steady and casual, like this was just another business report. "The inheritance from her grandmother is the real prize. 12 million plus the Connecticut estate. Once we're married, I'll have access to everything. Then we can stage the accident we discussed. Everyone already thinks she's unstable. I've made sure of that." The word accident hit me like a physical blow. I doubled over, forehead pressing into the cold marble. My body trembled, but something sharper cut through the terror. Clarity. "I have to admit there are moments I almost feel bad for her," he continued, voice dripping mock sympathy. "She's so trusting, so eager to please. But then I remember what we're working toward, and it gets easier. Besides, she served her purpose. The wedding will be beautiful. Her grandmother's money will pay for it, which feels poetic, don't you think?" The bile rose in my throat. Still, I forced myself upright, forced myself to keep listening. Every word was a blade, carving away the fantasy I'd lived in for 3 years, but I needed the whole truth. "I'll call you tomorrow to finalize the prenup," Emmett finished. "Don't worry, she'll sign whatever I put in front of her. She trusts me completely. Poor little Cassandra. She has no idea her fairy tale is about to become her worst nightmare." The memo ended with a soft beep, leaving me in silence. He'd said my name like a punchline, as if I were nothing more than the setup to a joke he and his mother shared. I stayed on the floor for what felt like hours, my mind spinning through disbelief, devastation, and finally landing on something else, something more useful than grief. Rage. Pure crystalline rage. Emmett thought he'd found the perfect victim, a grieving granddaughter with more money than she knew what to do with. He studied me the way predators study prey, cataloging weaknesses, exploiting my loneliness, feeding off my desperate need for love. But he made one fatal mistake. He underestimated me. I rose, legs steady despite the storm in my chest. My reflection in the darkened window stared back. Same face, same nightgown. But the eyes were different. Older, harder, focused. The naive girl he thought he'd broken was gone. In her place stood someone he'd never met. I picked up the phone, fingers ice cold but sure, and forwarded the voice memo to 3 separate cloud accounts. Insurance. Then I set the device back down on the counter and turned toward the staircase. Upstairs, Emmett slept, his arms stretched across my empty side of the bed. I lingered in the doorway, watching the man who had whispered vows of forever while plotting my end. Tomorrow he would wake to the same sweet, trusting fiancé he believed he'd crafted. But tonight, as the city lights flickered like silent witnesses outside our glass walls, I made a vow of my own. I would play his game. I would play it better than he ever imagined. And when the time came, he would finally understand what it meant to underestimate Cassandra Hale. The morning sun slid through our bedroom windows, golden and soft, the kind of light directors use in romantic films. But to me, it felt harsh, exposing every crack in the lie I now lived inside. I lay perfectly still, eyes half closed, listening to the steady rhythm of Emmett's breathing beside me. His arm tightened around my waist with practiced tenderness. "Good morning, beautiful," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. That same voice that had whispered, "I love you," while plotting my death only hours earlier. I turned toward him slowly, shaping my lips into a sleepy smile. "Morning," I whispered, praying the tremor in my chest didn't carry into my voice. His dark hair was tousled, his green eyes soft with what anyone else might have mistaken for devotion. Even now, even knowing the truth, I could see why I had fallen for him. Devastatingly handsome, disarming in his calm, a mask crafted for seduction and control. "You okay?" he asked, studying me, the way a scientist studies a specimen under glass. His thumb traced my cheek, gentle, searching. "You seem off." I let my lashes flutter, as if embarrassed. "Just tired. I got up around 3 for water and couldn't fall back asleep." A flicker of satisfaction crossed his eyes. Subtle, but there. He liked hearing I was fragile. It proved his conditioning was working. "You've been restless a lot lately," he said in that careful, therapeutic tone he used when he wanted me to question myself. "Maybe we should talk to Dr. Reeves about adjusting your medication again." Dr. Reeves, the psychiatrist Emmett had recommended 2 years ago, insisting he come to every appointment for support. Now I saw it clearly. The doctor wasn't a support system. He was a co-conspirator. I forced myself closer, hiding my expression against Emmett's chest. "Maybe. You always know what's best for me." He kissed the top of my head. "I just want to take care of you. You know that, right? Everything I do is because I love you." The words, once a balm, now made my skin crawl, but I tilted my face upward, smiled with practiced adoration. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," he replied solemnly. "Never, until he was ready to collect my inheritance, until he staged the accident." His phone buzzed on the nightstand. I felt his body tense slightly. "Probably work," he muttered, but the hesitation in his voice betrayed him. I lifted my head, giving him space to reach for the phone. His eyes skimmed the screen, jaw tightening almost imperceptibly, before he typed a quick reply and set it back down. "Everything okay?" I asked, injecting concern into my voice, tilting my head like a woman desperate for reassurance. "Yeah, just some issues with the Bryson account." Smooth, casual, but I'd never heard of any Bryson account. Another fiction. I touched his chest lightly, tracing idle circles with my fingertip. "You work so hard. I worry about you sometimes." He caught my hand, smiling faintly. "Don't worry about me, sweetheart. I can take care of myself. You just focus on getting better. On our wedding. 2 months from now, you'll be Mrs. Emmett Beckham." My heart clenched, but I forced my eyes to light up. "I can't wait," I said. And for once it was true, but not for the reason he thought. In the kitchen, I moved through the motions of breakfast. The smell of coffee filled the air, grounding me. But my mind was a storm of strategy. Every smile, every gesture now had to be an act. Emmett strolled in, looking impeccable in a charcoal suit, as if the early morning had already prepared him for another performance. "Smells amazing," he said, kissing my temple. I startled, realizing I had left the eggs burning. Quickly, I turned off the stove. "Oh no, I'm sorry, I was distracted." "Hey, it's okay," he said soothingly, wrapping his arms around me. "You've been scattered lately. Maybe you should take one of those pills Dr. Reeves prescribed." The fake pills. Lactose tablets disguised as salvation. "You're right," I said softly. "I'll take one after breakfast." "Good girl," he murmured, the condescension hidden in a tone I once found comforting. I tilted my head, gazing up at him with what I hoped looked like devotion. "What did I ever do to deserve you?" "You existed," he said smoothly, cupping my face. "You beautiful, trusting girl. You existed, and you chose me." Poetry, a confession disguised as romance. I smiled, kissed him softly, and tucked the words away as evidence. After he left for work, I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the skyline. The woman I'd been 24 hours ago, dreaming of flowers and vows, was gone. In her place stood someone more dangerous. I opened my laptop, hands steady now, and typed Dr. Dawson Reeves psychiatric malpractice into the search bar. It didn't take long. A sanctioned history. Complaints of unethical prescriptions, conflicts of interest, questionable relationships with patients' families. And then one case 6 months ago. A woman manipulated with fake medication during her divorce, nearly institutionalized until she discovered the truth. My pulse thundered in my ears. Her story was my story. I screenshotted every document, uploaded to encrypted folders, cleared my browsing history. Emmett checked everything. The shower upstairs had taught me something. Time was my most precious weapon. 20 minutes to move, 20 minutes to lay groundwork. Every secret act had to be rehearsed like choreography. At noon, Emmett called. "Hi, sweetheart. How's my girl feeling today?" His voice was warm, rehearsed. "I'm okay," I said, letting just enough hesitation tremble through, still a little tired. "You should rest. I'll handle dinner tonight." He was so careful, always inserting himself as caretaker, rescuer, but now I could hear the calculation beneath it. "I love you," I whispered. "I love you more," he said. "Always." I hung up and stared at the phone. Then I opened a new note on my laptop and titled it, Wedding Plans. But the first bullet I typed wasn't flowers, or music, or vows. It was freeze accounts. That afternoon, I dialed my banker, Janet, while pacing the kitchen, my ear tuned to the hallway in case Emmett returned early. "Ms. Hale, lovely to hear from you," Janet said warmly. "How are the wedding preparations coming?" "Actually," I whispered, lowering my voice, "that's why I'm calling. I need to make urgent changes to my accounts. Security concerns." There was a pause. "That's a serious matter, Cassandra. Are you certain?" "I'm certain," I said firmly. My eyes flicked toward the apartment door, my heart pounding. "Has anyone else been inquiring about my accounts? Anyone claiming to represent me?" Janet hesitated. 3 months ago, a man called, claimed he was your financial advisor. He knew a disturbing amount about you, your grandmother's estate, even your social security number. We refused him access, of course." My knees buckled. "What was his name?" "He said his name was Emmett Beckham." My vision tunneled, but I forced my voice steady. "I want a complete freeze. No one touches anything without my physical presence and multiple IDs. Can you do that?" "Of course. Are you safe?" "For now," I whispered. "But document everything. If anything happens to me, you'll know why." When Emmett came home that evening, he kissed my cheek and asked about my day. I smiled, showed him a screen of wedding flowers, and listened while he talked about fictional clients. All the while, my mind raced ahead. He thought he was scripting my destruction. But I had just written in the opening line of his. By the next morning, my mask had settled into place. It was amazing how quickly the body learned to act, how instinct took over once survival became the only priority. I brewed coffee, opened my laptop, scrolled through seating charts for the wedding, all the motions of a bride-to-be, while my other hand tapped at my encrypted folders, uploading screenshots and notes. Emmett had left early, claiming a breakfast meeting downtown. More likely he was meeting his mother, Victoria Beckham, the woman whose cold blue eyes had appraised me like a stock portfolio each time we'd met. I'd always told myself she was simply reserved, maybe a little snobbish. Now I understood. She'd been evaluating her mark. I checked the front door 3 times to be sure it was locked before making my call. "Janet, it's Cassandra again." "I've already implemented the freeze," Janet said briskly. "No one can access your accounts without you present." Thank you, I hesitated. Do you keep records of who's tried to contact you? Yes, everything is logged. Good. If anyone else calls claiming to represent me, Emmett, Beckham especially, you do not speak to them. Document it and call me immediately. Janet's voice softened. Cassandra, forgive me for saying this, but you sound frightened. I am, I said quietly, but I'm also done being naive. After hanging up, I opened another window on my laptop and typed in a name I hadn't said aloud in years. Stephanie Hendricks. My grandmother's attorney. The woman who had protected Eleanor Graham's empire like a fortress. She answered on the second ring. Ms. Hendricks. Stephanie, it's Cassandra Hale, Eleanor Graham's granddaughter. There was a pause, then a warm but cautious tone. Cassandra, it's been a while. How are the wedding plans coming? That's complicated, I said, lowering my voice. I can't talk long. Are you in your office? Yes. I need to see you, today if possible. Something in my voice must have carried because her tone shifted instantly from polite to professional. Come now, we'll clear the afternoon. The drive to her downtown office felt like moving through a dream. The city was bright, noisy, alive, but behind the windshield, everything looked like a set piece. I kept my sunglasses on, partly to hide my eyes, partly to conceal the small camera clipped inside my jacket. Every phone call, every meeting, every word had to be evidence now. Stephanie's office occupied the top floor of a stone building older than both of us. Dark wood, glass walls, heavy books lining shelves. It smelled like polish and power. She rose when I entered, silver hair catching the light. Cassandra, she said, taking my hands. You look, She stopped, reading my face. What's happened? I sat. I'm in danger. Then I told her everything. The voice memo at 2:47 a.m., the fake medication, the bank call, Dr. Reeves's history, Emmett's plans for an accident after our honeymoon. My words spilled out in a low, steady stream, each one another brick in the case I was building. Stephanie listened without interrupting, her fingers steepled. When I finished, she exhaled slowly. This is not just fraud, this is conspiracy and attempted murder. I know, I said, but I'm not ready to go to the police, not yet. Her eyes narrowed. Cassandra, I don't want him to just be arrested for planning something. He'll spin it, hire lawyers, claim I'm unstable. He's spent years setting up that narrative. I want him to pay for what he's already done. I want him to lose everything the way he planned for me to lose everything. Silence stretched between us. Then a small, fierce smile curved her lips. Your grandmother would be proud. She never went to war unprepared either. I leaned forward. Will you help me? Yes, Stephanie said, but we do it carefully, methodically, legally. When we're finished, Emmett Beckham won't just be arrested, he'll be destroyed. We spent the next hour building the skeleton of a plan. Stephanie would quietly gather evidence, reaching out to investigators she trusted. I would continue playing the devoted, deteriorating fiancé, feeding Emmett exactly the performance he expected. He needs to incriminate himself in a way no lawyer can spin, Stephanie said. We want his confession, his signatures, his calls. We want him to believe he's already won. I nodded. I can do that? Her gaze softened a little. This is dangerous, Cassandra. If he suspects... He won't. My voice was steadier than I felt. His arrogance is his weakness. He thinks I'm weak. He thinks I'm broken. He has no idea who he's really dealing with. Stephanie leaned back, studying me. Very well. I'll start digging into Dr. Reeves immediately. If we can link him to other cases, it strengthens the case against all of them. I reached into my bag, sliding across the screenshots of Reeves's disciplinary actions. Start here. Her eyes scanned the pages. Good work. The praise landed strangely. For 3 years, I'd been shrinking under Emmett's manipulation, second-guessing my every move. Now, a simple good work felt like oxygen. By the time I left Stephanie's office, the sun was lowering over the skyline. Rush hour clogged the streets. My phone buzzed with a text from Emmett. Dinner at 7? Thinking salmon. Love you. I typed back, perfect. Love you too. Then I put the phone down and let out a shaky breath. It was working. He suspected nothing. Back at the penthouse, Emmett was at the stove when I walked in, sleeves rolled up, looking every bit the doting partner. I thought I'd cook tonight, he said, smiling. You've been so stressed. I set down my bag, forcing my smile to match his. You're sweet. Just taking care of my girl. He kissed my temple, then lowered his voice as if confiding a secret. I called Dr. Reeves today. He's worried about you. Thinks maybe we should look into a more intensive treatment plan. A residential facility, a place where I could be locked away, isolated, my credibility shredded. My pulse spiked, but I kept my tone soft. Maybe after the wedding, I murmured. Right now, I just want to be home with you. His smile returned. Of course, whatever makes you comfortable. I watched him plate the salmon, moving with easy confidence. He truly believed he held all the cards. After dinner, I retreated to the bedroom, claiming a headache. Behind the closed door, I opened my hidden notebook. Every entry another piece of the puzzle. Dates, times, things he'd moved, things he'd said, passwords he'd changed, pills he'd handed me. I added today's new data point, Dr. Reeves worrying about me, and circled it in red. From the kitchen came the faint sound of Emmett's voice, low, urgent, like the night of the voice memo. I crept to the door, cracked it slightly, and listened. She's fine, he was saying. No, she doesn't suspect a thing. We'll move up the date if we have to. The prenup will be signed. Just relax. Silence, then a softer tone. I know, Mom. Trust me. I closed the door quietly and pressed my back against it, heart pounding. Victoria Beckham was still pulling the strings. Emmett was just the front man. But they were both about to learn that I had strings of my own. In bed later, I curled against him, breathing in the scent of his cologne, the same scent that clung to my pillow when the voice memo arrived. I've been thinking, I said softly. Maybe we should move the wedding up. Why wait? He stiffened slightly, then relaxed. Really? I nodded, eyes wide with apparent devotion. I just want to be your wife. His smile was slow and full of triumph. I'll make some calls tomorrow. Perfect, I thought. Dig your grave faster. I closed my eyes, resting my head against his chest, and let my breathing slow into the rhythm of sleep. But my mind was awake, sharp as glass, replaying Stephanie's words. We do it carefully, methodically, legally. Emmett Beckham thought he was orchestrating my downfall. He had no idea he was already performing in mine. The following week, I booked an appointment with Dr. Dawson Reeves. I didn't tell Emmett until the night before, letting it slip as if I was nervous about my episodes. His reaction was a careful mask of concern, but I caught the flicker of satisfaction beneath. Another checkmark in his carefully cultivated story. Fragile fiancé, unstable bride-to-be. I think that's a good idea, Emmett said, smoothing a hand over my hair. Dr. Reeves always knows how to help you. Yeah, I whispered, lowering my gaze like a dutiful patient. Maybe he can adjust my meds. He kissed my forehead, whispering, That's my girl. Inside, I imagined shoving that affectionate tone down his throat. Dr. Reeves's office was as I remembered. Sleek leather furniture, heavy curtains, diplomas and gilded frames. A stage set for legitimacy. He greeted me warmly, spectacles glinting under fluorescent light. Cassandra, come in. You look pale. How are you feeling today? I sat in the familiar chair, hands clasped in my lap. Anxious. The wedding. It's overwhelming. And I've been having trouble sleeping. He nodded sympathetically, jotting notes. Not uncommon. You've been under stress for months. But remember, this is why you have a strong support system. Emmett tells me he's very concerned about you. There it was. A line rehearsed too smoothly. Emmett tells me. I know, I said softly, lowering my voice into tremulous gratitude. He's been so patient. I slipped the pill bottle from my purse, placing it on his desk. But I wanted to ask. These look different from what I usually get. The color's off. No markings. For a fraction of a second, his face froze. Barely perceptible, but I saw it. The stiffening around the mouth, the sudden stillness of his hands. Then he forced a smile. Sometimes generic versions vary. Did the pharmacy explain? Emmett picked them up. He said they were substitutes. Reeves's hand twitched toward the bottle, fingers trembling slightly as he lifted it. Let me call the pharmacy. Could be a labeling error. Could it? I asked, tilting my head. My voice was mild, but I let the question hang, sharp as glass. He cleared his throat, standing abruptly. Wait here, I'll check. The moment the door clicked shut, I moved. My hand shot across his desk to the manila folder stamped with my name. My pulse pounded in my ears as I flipped it open. The words swam before me, but I forced myself to focus. Treatment plan. Notes charting my supposed decline. Increased dependence on fiancé. Growing memory lapses. Patient often apologizes for confusion. Line after line, a blueprint of psychological torture disguised as therapy. Recommendations: continue placebo regimen, reinforce perception of forgetfulness, maintain fiancé presence to increase dependency. My stomach twisted. He hadn't just cooperated with Emmett's plan, he'd documented it like a research project. I snapped photos as quickly as my shaking hands allowed, sliding pages into the light, holding my phone low. Each click of the shutter felt like a drumbeat. Outside, footsteps echoed in the hallway. I shoved the folder back into place and dropped into my chair just as the doorknob rattled. My phone slipped back into my purse, heart hammering. Reeves entered, his face pale, sweat sheening his forehead. He clutched the bottle tightly. There was apparently a mix-up. They'll correct it immediately. I widened my eyes, let a note of panic into my voice. A mix-up? So I've been taking the wrong medication? He forced a calm smile. It happens occasionally. Nothing serious. We'll get you the correct prescription. I leaned forward, wringing my hands. But Emmett, he's been so worried. This explains everything, doesn't it? Why I've been worse. Yes, Reeves said quickly. Too quickly. No need to trouble him with unnecessary details. Let's stabilize you first. Of course, he didn't want Emmett troubled. He wanted him uninformed about my suspicion. I dabbed at my eyes with a tissue. You're right. I just want to get better for him. Good girl, he murmured, scribbling on a pad. He slid a new prescription toward me. I glanced at it. The drug name wasn't familiar, but the dosage was heavy. Too heavy. If I took this, I'd be fogged, drowsy, pliable. I forced a trembling smile. Thank you. I'll start tonight. When I left his office, my heart was still racing, but beneath the fear, a dark satisfaction bloomed. I had the photos. Proof of his complicity. Proof that my unraveling had been deliberate. Outside, the city roared around me, cars honking, people shouting. Normal life, oblivious to the war I was waging. I ducked into a coffee shop, ordered nothing, and sat at a corner table with my laptop. Quickly, I uploaded the photos to 3 cloud drives, then emailed a copy to Stephanie with no subject line. Just a single sentence. He's in it up to his neck. Her reply arrived within minutes. Good. We'll use him. Keep playing. That evening, Emmett returned home with his usual flourish. Tie loosened, jacket draped over his shoulder, handsome and self-assured. He set his briefcase down, kissed me warmly, eyes scanning me like a lie detector. How was your appointment? I let my hands fidget with the hem of my sweater. Dr. Reeves thinks maybe I need stronger medication. His eyes sharpened with satisfaction. That makes sense. You've seemed fragile lately. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. Did you start them? Not yet. I thought maybe after dinner. His smile was gentle. That's fine. I'll remind you. I forced a laugh, light and shaky. What would I do without you? You'll never have to know, he said, kissing my forehead. Later, as he showered, I slipped into the kitchen. I pulled the prescription bottle Reeves had given me from my purse, turning it in my hands. The label glared up at me, clinical and sterile. I thought about taking one, just to maintain the illusion. But then I pictured myself stumbling, slurring, sliding into his arms while he whispered reassurance and plotted my death. No. I poured the pills into a tissue, tied it tight, and shoved it deep into the trash. Then I filled the bottle with vitamins from my cupboard, identical in size, harmless. If he ever checked, he'd see pills were missing. He'd believe I was swallowing poison willingly. When Emmett came downstairs later, towel slung over his shoulders, I was curled on the couch with a blanket. I looked up at him with what I hoped was drowsy gratitude. Took one of the new pills, I murmured. He smiled, pleased. Good girl. You'll feel better soon. Inside, my rage burned steady and cold. Soon, yes, but not for the reasons he thought. That night, while he slept beside me, I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. The events of the day looped through my mind. The file, the notes, Reeves's sweating hands. The trap was tightening. But Emmett wasn't my only predator. His mother loomed larger than ever, her invisible presence lacing every move. I thought of the way she had looked at me at dinners. Eyes sharp, measuring, lips curving into polite smiles that never reached her gaze, the smirk of a woman who believed the game was already won. But Victoria Beckham had no idea what was coming. None of them did. The next morning, I sat in the penthouse kitchen, hands wrapped around a coffee mug gone cold. Emmett had already left, kissing my temple as though nothing in our world was wrong. He had no idea I'd spent the night replaying his mother's voice in my head, the smug confidence of a woman certain she'd raised her son into the perfect predator. I couldn't face another hour alone in that apartment, so I grabbed my bag and headed downtown to Stephanie Hendrick's office. Her assistant ushered me in immediately, closing the heavy oak door behind me. Stephanie rose, sharp in a tailored navy suit, her silver hair coiled at the nape of her neck like steel wire. She gestured for me to sit. "You have something for me?" she asked without preamble. Wordlessly, I slid my phone across the desk. The screen glowed with the photographs I'd taken. Dr. Reeves's notes, his treatment plan, the handwriting that documented my manufactured decline like a clinical experiment. Stephanie scrolled slowly, her expression tightening with every image. When she finished, she set the phone down with deliberate care. "This is worse than I expected." I let out a humorless laugh. "You think?" She leaned forward, hands steepled. "Cassandra, this isn't just medical negligence. This is a conspiracy. He created a paper trail that practically screams intent to destabilize you. If the board sees this, his license is gone. If the DA sees it, he's facing prison." "Good," I said flatly. Her eyes narrowed. "You don't sound relieved. You sound hungry." I met her gaze. "Because I'm not satisfied with him just losing his license, or with Emmett getting caught for attempted murder. I want them ruined. All of them." Stephanie tilted her head, studying me. "Revenge?" "Justice," I corrected. Then softer. "Maybe both." Silence stretched. For the first time, I saw hesitation flicker in her sharp eyes. "You understand that revenge has a cost," she said. "Once you start down that path—" "I didn't choose this path," I cut in, voice low but hard. "They did. They groomed me like prey. They gaslit me until I thought I was losing my mind. They planned my accident. They wanted me erased. So no, Stephanie, I don't want to run to the police yet and pray the system believes me. I want them to feel what I've felt, cornered, helpless, small, and then I want them destroyed." A beat of silence, then the faintest smile curved her lips. Eleanor would approve. My throat tightened. My grandmother had been ruthless in business, but never cruel without reason. She had built an empire from nothing and guarded it fiercely. I remembered her once saying, "A predator's bite only hurts until you show them your teeth." Stephanie's smile sharpened. "Very well. If destruction is what you want, then destruction is what we'll deliver. But we do it legally, methodically, and with precision. No sloppy mistakes." I nodded. "Where do we start?" She pulled a legal pad across the desk. "Step 1. Keep playing the role. If Emmett suspects you know, he'll accelerate his timeline. He needs to believe you're still docile." I thought of his gentle smile at breakfast, the way he had reminded me to take my fake pill. My lips curled. "Docile is easy. I've had 3 years of practice." "Good. Step 2. Evidence. The voice memo, the medical file photos, your testimony. We need more. Financial records, calls, messages, anything tying him and Victoria to a pattern of fraud or intent to harm." "He's careful," I admitted, "but his arrogance slips through. He believes he's smarter than everyone." "Arrogance is a prosecutor's favorite witness," Stephanie said. Step 3. Dr. Reeves. We'll pressure him until he cracks. A man like that doesn't survive scrutiny. He'll turn on them to save himself." I leaned forward. "And when all of that is ready?" Her smile turned cold. "Then we spring the trap. Preferably at a moment when he believes he's untouchable." "The wedding," I whispered. Stephanie nodded slowly. "Yes, the perfect stage. He'll be eager, sloppy, overconfident, and surrounded by witnesses." A shiver ran through me. Not fear, but a strange exhilaration. The thought of Emmett standing at the altar, convinced he'd won, only to realize too late the stage had been set for his ruin. As I left Stephanie's office, the city seemed sharper, more dangerous, and yet more alive than before. Every passerby looked like a potential threat. Every window a mirror reflecting the double life I was now leading. I stopped in front of a bridal shop. In the window, mannequins wore white gowns with long trains and delicate lace. My reflection stared back between them, pale and hard-eyed, the perfect bride and the perfect liar. My phone buzzed. "Emmett. Thinking Italian tonight. You okay?" I typed back, "Yes, just tired. Can't wait to see you." I slipped the phone into my purse and whispered to the mannequins, "He'll never see me coming." That evening, over pasta in a candlelit restaurant, Emmett held my hand across the table. To strangers, we looked like the picture of love, but I studied the way his thumb stroked my knuckles, automatic and rehearsed, like a magician running through a trick for the 1,000th time. "You seem brighter today," he said warmly. The new meds must be helping. Yes, I lied smoothly. I feel calmer already. He smiled with quiet triumph, lifting his wine glass. To us, to everything we're building. I raised mine, holding his gaze. To us, I echoed. But inside, I toasted to something else entirely, his downfall. Back at the apartment, he pulled me close as we walked through the door. You know I'd do anything for you, right? His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, frowned, then excused himself to the balcony. I slipped into the hallway, listening. Yes, Mom, he whispered. Everything's on track. She's taking the pills, the new ones. Don't worry. Silence. Then, the prenup will be handled. She won't question it. She trusts me completely. I forced myself to retreat before he turned back. When he re-entered, his smile was casual again, his voice light. Just work. I kissed his cheek sweetly, playing my role to perfection. You work too hard. Later in bed, I stared at the ceiling while he slept beside me. My notebook lay hidden in the drawer, filling with evidence. Tomorrow, I'd begin documenting everything with timestamps. Every lie, every manipulation, every subtle cruelty. Stephanie was right. Arrogance was the best witness. And Emmett Beckham had just volunteered to testify against himself. The next 2 weeks became a theater of lies. Every morning I played the role of the fragile bride-to-be, fluttering through wedding magazines, letting my voice tremble when I forgot things he wanted me to forget, clinging to him like I couldn't breathe without his presence. Every night, when the lights dimmed and his breathing deepened, I scribbled notes in my hidden journal and uploaded recordings from the wire I'd started wearing beneath my blouses. Emmett believed the performance completely. You've been so scattered lately, he said one afternoon, sliding documents across the marble island. His tone was tender, concerned, and laced with calculation. Maybe this will help take some of the stress off you. I glanced down. Legal papers. Power of attorney. I don't understand, I whispered, eyes widening like a cornered child. It's just precaution, he soothed, brushing my hand with his thumb. Dr. Reeves thinks it's important. If you have another episode, I can manage things until you're better. Pay bills, handle accounts, protect you. I let my hand tremble as I reached for the pen. If you think it's best. His eyes gleamed. I do. You trust me, don't you? I swallowed, forced a shaky smile. With my life. He kissed my forehead as I signed. He didn't know Stephanie had already prepared fake versions of those documents. Perfect decoys that gave him exactly nothing. Good girl, he murmured, collecting the papers, as though he'd just captured me completely. Inside, I was smiling too. He thought he'd won another piece of the puzzle. Instead, he'd just signed his own death warrant. At night, I lay in bed listening to him type on his phone, his messages quick and urgent. I pretended to stir, and he would smile softly, kiss my hair, then return to his secrets. One night, I cracked my eyes open just enough to glimpse his reflection in the mirror across the room. His face glowed in the light of the screen, sharp with greed, softened only when he typed, "Love you." I almost laughed. Love. His truest devotion was to money and control, not to me. Meanwhile, Stephanie was busy. She'd begun quiet conversations with federal investigators, men and women who'd seen conspiracies like this before. She called me daily, her voice steady, her words precise. We're building the case, Cassandra. Reeves has a pattern. Multiple women, same tactics, same outcomes. And Victoria's history is darker than even I imagined. Each revelation was another brick in the fortress we were constructing. But still, I had to play my role at home. One evening, Emmett poured me a glass of wine and leaned across the table. I've been thinking, maybe we should move the wedding up. Why wait until December? We could do it next month. I let my eyes widen, my hand fly to my throat. Next month? But the invitations... I'll handle everything, he said quickly. We can pay the rush fees. Money's no object when it comes to our happiness. My money, he meant. But what about the guests? I whispered. I've already spoken to most of them, he admitted with a triumphant smile. They'll rearrange their schedules. Everyone understands. When you're in love, you don't want to wait. I lowered my lashes, feigning a blush. You think of everything. Of course I do, he said, pressing my hand to his lips. You're all I think about. If only he knew what I was thinking about. How perfect this acceleration was for me. The sooner he rushed, the sloppier he became. I began planting subtle seeds in our conversations. Little nudges designed to feed his arrogance. What if something happens to me? I asked one night, curling against him on the couch. What if my condition gets worse? He stroked my hair. That won't happen. But even if it did, I'd take care of you. Promise, I whispered, letting my voice crack with fear. I promise, he said solemnly. I hid my smile against his chest. Every promise he made was another piece of evidence, another lie captured on tape. The pressure mounted as the wedding drew closer. He hovered constantly, insisting on being at every dress fitting, every cake tasting, every vendor meeting. To outsiders, he looked like a devoted fiancé. To me, he looked like a jailer, making sure his prisoner never slipped her chains. But I let him hover. I leaned into his touch, whispered that I couldn't handle anything without him. I let him believe he was indispensable. The truth was, I had never been more focused, more clear. One night, after dinner, he pulled me into his lap. "You know what I'm most excited about?" he murmured. "What?" I asked, feigning breathless anticipation. "Our honeymoon, 2 weeks in Tuscany, just the two of us. No stress, no distractions. 2 weeks in a foreign country. No allies, no safety net. The perfect stage for an accident." I let tears pool in my eyes. "That sounds like a dream. What if I get sick again? What if something happens?" He tightened his arms around me, smiling tenderly. "That's why I'll be there, to protect you. Nothing will happen." I rested my head on his shoulder, hiding the icy smile spreading across my face. He thought Italy would be my tomb. Instead, it would be the final nail in his coffin. Stephanie and I met in secret in cafes and quiet corners. She laid out the strategy, her eyes glinting with sharp precision. "He'll expect control over the prenup. Let him push. Stall where you can, but don't resist too much. Arrogance will make him careless." "What about Reeves?" I asked. "We'll corner him. Men like him crack when faced with losing everything. If we play it right, he'll testify against Emmett and his mother to save himself." "And the wedding?" Stephanie leaned back, her voice cool. "The wedding is our stage. We'll have eyes and ears everywhere. When he thinks he's sealing your fate, he'll be sealing his own." A thrill ran through me. Not fear, but anticipation. For weeks I had lived inside his performance, a puppet dancing on strings he thought he controlled. Now the curtain was about to rise on mine. That night, back in the penthouse, Emmett brushed my hair while I sat at the vanity. To anyone else, it might have looked tender. To me, it was a predator stroking prey before the kill. "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever known," he whispered, his eyes catching mine in the mirror. I forced a shy smile. "You make me feel safe." "Good," he said softly, "because you'll never have to be without me." I swallowed down the bile and whispered, "I don't deserve you." "Yes, you do," he said firmly. "You deserve everything I give you." And in that moment, I almost pitied him. Almost. Because everything he gave me now, his words, his promises, his arrogance, was being cataloged, stored, and weaponized. He thought he was building a perfect trap. But really, he was walking into mine. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and cold, a clear September sky above the city like a polished blade. From the window of my hotel suite, I could see the spire of the cathedral where, in a few hours, I was supposed to become Mrs. Emmett Beckham. Emmett thought today would be his coronation, the moment his years of patience and manipulation bore fruit. For me, it was the stage of our final act. My maid of honor, Emma, moved quietly around the room, adjusting veils and pressing my bouquet. She was the only person in my inner circle who knew the truth. Stephanie had met her in secret 2 days earlier, laying out the plan. "Keep your eyes open," Stephanie had told her. "If anything deviates, call me immediately." Emma caught my gaze in the mirror now. "You okay?" I let my hands tremble just enough for her to see. "I'm fine." "You don't have to do this," she whispered. "Yes, I do." My voice was calm, steady. This is the only way to end it. Downstairs, the limousine waited. Emmett had insisted on the classic stretch, white ribbons fluttering from the hood. He met me at the curb, eyes bright with triumph, tuxedo perfectly cut. "You look incredible," he said, lifting my hand to his lips. "Thank you," I murmured, letting a shy blush rise to my cheeks. The ride to the cathedral was a blur of flashbulbs, cheering onlookers, and whispered endearments. He kept squeezing my fingers, leaning in to murmur, "Almost there. Everything's perfect." I nodded, letting my eyes shine with what he thought was devotion. Inside, my pulse was a drumbeat. Stay in character. Stay in character. The cathedral doors opened onto a sea of faces. Friends, family, business contacts, journalists. Victoria Beckham sat near the front, draped in couture, her cold eyes gleaming like polished stones. She inclined her head slightly as we passed, the barest acknowledgement of the role she'd played in all of this. I thought of the file in Stephanie's hands, the recordings, the bank statements. The testimonies from Reeves's other victims, all the threads woven into a net waiting to drop. The organ swelled. I walked down the aisle on Emma's arm, veil trembling like gossamer. Emmett waited at the altar, tall and composed, his smile the practiced smile of a man who believed his prize was seconds away. When I reached him, he squeezed my hands. "You're safe now," he whispered. I tilted my head up, letting a tear slip free. "Yes," I breathed. "I'm safe." The ceremony began. Words rolled over me. Dearly beloved, in holy matrimony, while my mind ticked off the plan like choreography. Stephanie's investigators were in place, 3 seated among the guests with hidden cameras, one disguised as a server near the sacristy, another waiting in the ambulance outside. Everything depended on timing. I glanced at Emmett. He looked at me like a man who'd already won. The priest's voice rose. "If anyone can show just cause why these two may not lawfully be joined." No one spoke. "Do you, Emmett Alexander Beckham, take Cassandra Eleanor Hale?" "I do," he said smoothly, squeezing my hands. "And do you, Cassandra Eleanor Hale, take—" Shh. My knees buckled. I swayed once, twice, then collapsed against him, my veil slipping as my body went limp. A low gasp rippled through the congregation. Emma cried out, "Cass!" rushing forward. Emmett caught me, his grip tightening reflexively. For a flicker of a moment, his mask cracked. Surprise, annoyance, calculation, all flashing across his face before he smoothed it into concern. "Call an ambulance, y'all," he barked. "She's fainted." The priest stepped back. Guests murmured. Victoria's eyes narrowed, lips pressed thin. "She's been under stress," Emmett said loudly, lifting me into his arms. "She needs medical attention. Now." The paramedics were already moving up the aisle. Stephanie's people in crisp uniforms pushing a gurney. They took me from his arms, checking my pulse with professional calm. "We'll take her to St. Gregory's," one said. "Closest ER." "I'm coming with her," Emmett declared, his voice firm. "Family only," the lead medic replied. "We'll update you once she's stable." "I'm her fiancé," he snapped. "We're getting married." "She's not your wife yet," the medic said evenly. "We have to move." The gurney rolled down the aisle, the murmurs of the guests rising into a buzz of confusion. Cameras flashed. Emma clutched my bouquet like a lifeline, eyes darting to Stephanie, who sat calm and still in the back row, her expression unreadable. As the doors swung shut behind us, cutting off the cathedral's noise, the medic bent close to my ear. "You're clear," she murmured. "He's staying behind. We're taking you to the safe house." I opened my eyes, just a crack, and saw the black van waiting at the curb. Not an ambulance at all, but one of Stephanie's vehicles. We transferred smoothly, doors slamming shut. Inside, the medic pulled off her cap, revealing short brown hair and a clipped accent. "You did perfectly." My voice was a whisper. "Did he buy it?" Her smile was sharp. "Completely. He thinks you're en route to St. Gregory's." I lay back, heart hammering but steady. The hardest part was over. The trap was set. Back at the cathedral, Emmett was no doubt fielding frantic questions, smoothing ruffled feathers, spinning stories for guests and press. In his mind, he was still the hero, the devoted groom rushing after his sick bride. In reality, he was walking straight into a cage. The van turned a corner, speeding toward the safe house where Stephanie and the investigators waited. My veil lay crumpled in my lap, the lace torn and damp from fake tears. My hands trembled not from fear now, but from adrenaline. For 3 years, I had been his puppet. For 3 months, I had been his actress. Today, for the first time, I was myself. And Emmett Beckham had no idea what kind of show he was about to star in. The safe house looked nothing like a hospital, though the inside had been staged to perfection. White walls, sterile equipment, monitors that beeped with fabricated rhythms. Stephanie's team had transformed the space overnight. To anyone who didn't know, it was just another ER ward. I lay on the bed in a pale gown, skin powdered to a deathly pallor, IV lines taped to my arm. The makeup artist had outdone herself. In the mirror across the room, I barely recognized the lifeless version of myself. Stephanie stood near the door, her arms crossed, her sharp eyes glittering. "Remember," she said quietly, "you don't move until he speaks. We need him on tape. Let him condemn himself." I nodded faintly. My pulse was steady now, sharpened into cold resolve. An hour later, the door burst open. Emmett strode in, his tuxedo jacket gone, bow tie hanging loose around his neck. His face was etched with worry, but I could see the glimmer of something else beneath it. Relief. "Where is she?" he demanded. Dr. Ryder, one of Stephanie's allies, stepped forward with professional solemnity. Mr. Beckham, I'm so sorry. We did everything we could. Cassandra didn't make it. Emmett's face went through the motions. Shock, devastation, trembling lips. He staggered toward a chair, burying his face in his hands. No, no, not Cass. She was everything to me. But when he lifted his head, alone with what he thought was her corpse, the mask cracked. Slowly, his expression twisted into something darker. He rose and walked to the bed, staring down at my motionless body. You stupid, trusting girl, he whispered, his voice cold. You made this too easy. The words cut like knives, even though I had expected them. He pulled out his phone and dialed quickly. Mom, it's done. No, not how we planned, but better. She overdosed right at the altar. Everyone saw. They'll never question it. Yes, she's dead. I saw her myself. Don't worry about the paperwork. I have power of attorney. I'll have access to everything within days. He chuckled softly, shaking his head. She really thought I loved her. 3 years, and she never saw a thing. Can you believe that? I let him talk. Every word was being recorded by the hidden mics planted in the room. I'll handle the funeral, he continued. Give a nice speech, cry on cue. Then we can start liquidating. Her grandmother's empire is finally ours. He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a hiss, meant only for me. Thank you, Cassandra, for being weak enough to love me, for being stupid enough to trust me. You were the perfect mark. That was my cue. My eyes snapped open. Emmett staggered back as though struck. What the? Surprise, I said, sitting up slowly, peeling the IV from my arm. Not so dead after all. His face drained of color. No, this isn't possible. We're supposed to be a corpse? I finished for him, sliding off the bed. I know. That was the plan, wasn't it? The perfect tragic accident. Poor Emmett Beckham, widowed at the altar. He stumbled toward the door, but it swung open before he could reach it. Stephanie stepped inside, flanked by 2 federal agents in dark suits. Emmett Alexander Beckham, one agent said, voice firm. You're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, fraud, and attempted homicide. Emmett's eyes darted wildly, calculating, searching for an exit. This is insane. She's lying. She's unstable. Ask Dr. Reeves. He'll tell you. We already have Dr. Reeves, Stephanie cut in smoothly. He decided prison for 10 years was preferable to life. He's been very cooperative. The agents advanced, snapping handcuffs around his wrists. Emmett thrashed. You think you can do this to me? You think you can destroy me? I stepped forward, close enough to see the panic in his eyes. No, Emmett, you destroyed yourself. All I did was let you talk. His face twisted with rage. You manipulative! I learned from the best, I said evenly, but unlike you, I didn't underestimate my opponent. Victoria Beckham's voice echoed faintly from his still open phone on the bed. Emmett, what's happening? Answer me. Stephanie leaned down, pressing the speaker button. Mrs. Beckham, this is Special Agent Harrington with the FBI. We'll be seeing you shortly. A stunned silence, then the line went dead. Emmett sagged between the agents, fury radiating off him in waves. This isn't over, he spat, his voice venom. You don't know my mother. She'll burn everything to the ground before she lets you win. Stephanie's smile was cold. She won't have the chance. She's already in custody. For the first time, true fear flickered across Emmett's face. As they dragged him past me, his eyes locked on mine, desperate, enraged. You'll regret this, Cassandra. You'll regret. I leaned close, whispering just loud enough for him to hear. The only thing I regret is ever thinking you were worth loving. He flinched, as though the words cut deeper than the cuffs. Then he was gone, swallowed by the hall and the waiting agents. Silence settled over the room, broken only by the steady hum of the fake monitors. My knees weakened, and I sank onto the bed, suddenly aware of the adrenaline draining from my body. Stephanie placed a hand on my shoulder. It's over. I shook my head slowly. Not yet. Not until I see them sentenced. She studied me, then nodded. Then that's what we'll do. But for today you won. Won. The word echoed, strange and foreign, on my tongue. 3 years of gaslighting, manipulation, despair, turned to ash in a single moment of reversal. I closed my eyes and saw Emmett's face when I opened mine. That instant of pure shock, of realization that his prey had teeth. The hunter had become the hunted, and his story was finished. 6 months later, I stood in the gallery of a federal courthouse, the air heavy with the scent of old wood and ink. The rows behind me buzzed with reporters, their pens scratching furiously, their cameras flashing as if they could capture justice on film. At the front, Emmett Beckham sat at the defendant's table in a wrinkled suit. He looked smaller than I remembered, his once perfect hair thinning, his handsome face hollowed by months behind bars. He barely resembled the man who had charmed me, destroyed me, planned my death with surgical precision. When the judge read the sentence, life in prison without the possibility of parole, Emmett turned his head, scanning the gallery until his eyes locked on mine. For a long moment, we stared at each other, predator and prey. Except now, the roles had reversed. His lips twisted into a snarl and he mouthed a single word, bitch. I smiled, calm and unshaken. Then I mouthed back, winner. The bailiffs hauled him away, shackles rattling, his voice breaking into curses that echoed off the chamber walls. That was the last time I saw him as a free man. Victoria Beckham's trial followed swiftly after. The so-called Black Widow sat in the same courtroom, her silver hair perfectly styled, her poise unbroken even as evidence mounted. Suspicious deaths of her husbands, fraudulent insurance claims, testimonies from Reeves and other accomplices. She didn't flinch when the guilty verdict came. Only her eyes betrayed her, narrowing with cold fury as the judge sentenced her to life beside her son. For decades she had trained him in deceit, grooming him into her mirror. Now they would spend the rest of their lives confined together by steel bars and concrete walls. The empire she had tried to seize had collapsed around her, and I was still standing. Dr. Reeves cut a deal, as expected. 15 years in prison for medical fraud, conspiracy, and malpractice. He testified in detail about his role, about the instructions Victoria had given, about the payments he received to keep me pliant and dependent. His voice cracked when he admitted it wasn't the first time. 6 women. 6 lives manipulated, destroyed, erased. Some never lived long enough to escape. I wasn't just fighting for myself anymore. I was carrying their voices into the light. After the verdicts, Stephanie found me outside the courthouse. She carried a bottle of champagne in one hand, her smile sharper than ever. "How does it feel?" she asked. "Like justice," I said softly. "Finally." She popped the cork right there on the courthouse steps. Reporters surged forward, but Stephanie lifted a hand, blocking them with lawyerly precision. "No questions today. My client deserves peace." Peace. The word tasted unfamiliar. For years, my life had been a battlefield. Subtle, psychological, silent. Now, at last, the war was over. That night, back in my apartment, I opened a box I hadn't touched since my grandmother died. Inside lay photographs of her, of the empire she'd built from nothing, of the awards she'd won for her ruthlessness disguised as resilience. I traced her face with my fingertip. "I did it, Grandma." I showed them what a Graham woman is made of. The next morning, I signed the paperwork to launch the Eleanor Foundation, dedicated to helping victims of psychological manipulation and abuse. My inheritance, the same fortune they had tried to steal, would now fund shelters, legal aid, therapy, and education. If Emmett had succeeded, that money would have been his blood prize. Instead, it became the weapon that turned his legacy to dust. But even as I built my future, memories lingered. The kitchen at 2:47 a.m., the voice memo that shattered my world, Emmett whispering, "You existed, and you chose me." His mother's cold eyes appraising me like property, Dr. Reeves's trembling hands over the pill bottle. I carried them all with me, not as wounds anymore, but as armor. Because here's what I learned. When someone sets out to break you, to erase you, to turn you into nothing, survival itself becomes the sharpest revenge. On the anniversary of what would have been my wedding day, I stood in the garden of the country club where it all had unraveled. White roses bloomed, heavy with fragrance. Guests had long since forgotten the chaos of that morning, moving on to other scandals. I laid a single rose on the altar steps, whispering, "Rest easy." Not to Emmett, not to Victoria, but to the girl I used to be. The one who believed in fairy tales, the one who trusted too easily, the one who thought love meant surrender. That girl was gone. In her place stood someone harder, wiser, unbreakable. As the sun set, I turned toward the horizon, the sky painted in streaks of fire and gold. My phone buzzed. Stephanie again. She had a list of other families ready to testify, other women who needed the Eleanor Foundation's help. I smiled, answering with steady confidence. "Tell them I'll be there." Because that was the truest victory of all. Not just surviving, not just winning, but building something stronger out of the ashes. Emmett Beckham had wanted to teach me about control, about manipulation, about power. Lesson learned. The student had become the master, and the master was now exactly where he belonged, behind bars, forever.